Hello and welcome to the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast made for fans by fans and where the content is absolutely free. If you haven't already, please share the podcast where you can and give us a like on our social media platforms. We are coming to you live tonight on the 1st of November after another victory in the Scottish Premiership against Kilmarnock this afternoon. 15th clean sheet of the season, and we go 9 points ahead of our rivals at the top of the table. So good weekend for Rangers. It's been a good week too. Victory over Lech Poznan on Thursday night gives a 100% record in Europe thus far. And we'll go through both games and also look ahead to the Benfica match on Thursday night throughout tonight's episode. Joining me to go through that are my fellow host, Colin Armstrong, and a returning man in John McCallum, who will go through this week's events with us. Gents, thanks for being here tonight. Colin, have you caught your breath after running up the stairs?
No. This is a short answer. Though. Again, guys that listen to the preview show on Thursday night for the Poznan game will realise that there's a new way of setting all this up on YouTube, and it's an absolute nightmare for a technophobe like myself. So once I'd got it all set up, I realised I didn't have my phone, I didn't have my glasses, so I had to run downstairs, and it's no use at all. It's no use for an old man like me. Maybe a young pup like you could do it, no bother, David, but for me, it's no good.
No, there was a lot of chat about you struggling to get it up before we started tonight. And, I didn't know it was a podcast we were talking about, so it's
aye, very good.
John, can you bring some sense to the podcast tonight? Can you bring a bit of, we've all seen your Twitter page. There's a lot of culture there. Are you going to bring that to the show tonight?
No, I don't think that's why you invite me on, is it? Let's be honest. No, I'm well conscious that in recent weeks we've had glamour European games, Old Firm matches, the exciting games. But the middle of a storm in November, you get myself and Colin back on. We're the kind of hardened guys that you need back on. We are the Arfield and McGregor, I think, of the Gersnet podcast team, brought in for the dirty, smelly, horrible games. So no, that's what you're getting from me tonight.
Yeah, I fear that Frankie sees me as Hadji, in and out of the team, but has that moment of magic every 7 podcasts. Anyway, we'll move on to the game today. It was, John and I spoke about it off air, Colin. It was one of those sort of games where, you enjoyed it more after the game and you actually thought about what we'd achieved. And I've covered enough of these games when I was still working down in Killie to see us struggle there numerous times, even under Gerrard, but before that too. It's been a place that's been really, really difficult to go and still is. And I thought actually Kilmarnock, gave us a good game, especially second half. I thought they were, probing a wee bit, but they just didn't have enough to breach our rear guard. But what did you make of the game first and foremost?
I actually, at the end of the game, I kind of felt it was probably a more comfortable win than it felt, because no matter who you're playing at 1-0, you're always conscious and you're always wary that the opposition can sneak a goal. But especially given our recent history at that particular ground, the last 10 minutes, again, I was sitting in the living room watching my boy, and he turned to me at one point. He's like, I don't know why I do this. I don't know why I put myself through this, because it was just getting so nervy. But when you actually think about it, in terms of the only real shot on target I think they had was the Brophy free kick. I mean, they had a couple of wee things in the second half. They certainly improved their performance in the second half, and they looked a wee bit more threatening. But I think Rangers at the moment are operating really well defensively, as the stats bear out. I think midfield we've got loads of options, and that's working well. I think the problem now is the front three. I just don't think we're being as clinical as we could be with chances. I think one or two players are guilty of being wasteful with chances and being very wasteful with possession. I felt today the only one that made the ball stick was Itten or Iten, or however you want to pronounce it. I thought Morelos and Kent today were a wee bit wasteful when they got the ball. They weren't holding up quite as much and bringing others into play. So to me, we could have been further ahead if the front three had operated at a sort of higher level. I think we could have been a wee bit more comfortable in the victory. But I mean, you can't complain too much. We've went there to a ground that's really, really difficult. There's always an issue when it's artificial pitch. It's obviously a surface that the players don't like playing on, and it's a club that have provided us a lot of problems. And at Ibrox as well, they've come to Ibrox a few times and give us a going over. So yeah, you could have wee mild criticisms here and there, but at the end of the day, we've went there, we've got the 3 points, we're 9 points clear. I know Celtic have got 2 games in hand, but we've got the points on the board. That's 12 games, and we've only conceded 3 goals. One of them was offside, one was an own goal. So effectively, we've only conceded 1 legitimate goal from open play. Celtic, I don't think they're going to get the opportunity to play these games until after Christmas. So that gives us another opportunity to actually go further ahead. They've got quite a tricky game next week. They go to Motherwell next week. And I know we went there a few weeks ago and stuffed them 5-1, but I think they've won every game since. And they're third in the form table at the moment. Outside Rangers and Celtic, they're the best team in Scotland at the moment. So that could be a tricky game. So yeah, overall it was nervy, probably a wee bit more nervy than it should have been. But job done, 3 points, and we go again next week.
Yeah, as Colin said there, John, it was satisfying to see us, grind that out there. But what pleased you? And what pleased you the most about, the way we played? And as I said, earlier, it's been a place that's been difficult to go. So how satisfying was it to see us go there and put on such a strong performance? And maybe last season or the season before that, we possibly would have dropped points there.
Yeah, but that's the big thing about this victory. I think every Rangers supporter was looking at a trip to Rugby Park, on a horrendous day in the west of Scotland. It was just terrible weather here. After a European match, and thinking, there's your banana skin game, there's your bogey team in Kilmarnock, plastic pitch, early kick-off. It's got, everything sitting there, making it look like it's going to be a problem for us. And from my perspective, last 10 minutes aside, and as I said to you off there, I didn't really enjoy the match until afterwards. It was one of these ones where you were kind of kept on expecting the worst. And I guess that's just what the last kind of 10 years of following Rangers have done to us, that you keep expecting something to go wrong. So I guess the fact that nothing did go wrong is individually is the biggest thing for me, is that we ground out a result on a rotten day, on a rotten pitch, against a physical team who have been able to land blows on us in the past. So that, for me, David, keeps showing progress. That says, right, this is a slightly better team than last season, because they're winning the games that they would have dropped points in last season. I think the game on Thursday night probably took more out of us than we accepted. I think a lot of folk went into that game thinking that game was going to be easier than it was. And in actual fact, that was a pretty hard game on a heavy pitch, again on a poor night. Team today had 4 or 5 changes in it. All the players that came in, I thought, did pretty well. So again, no complaints there. And overall, I think it's just the fact that we won ugly. A thing that perhaps Rangers haven't done. Rangers are a tremendous team to watch just now. We play fantastic possession football. When it clicks, it's as good football I've seen Rangers play ever. And I've been watching Rangers for a long time. I thought the kind of advocate team that he kind of had in his first couple of seasons was probably the best Rangers team I've ever seen in terms of how they played football, they held the ball. But this current team this season, I could be convinced that that's better. Certainly getting better results in Europe than that team did. So, overall, that's what's pleased me here, is that we won a difficult game on a difficult pitch in difficult conditions. And I think that's what you have to take from this. The first time a Rangers team in the last few years has won ugly.
Yeah, Colin, it was a strange thing when I was doing the agenda, and spoke to my dad after the game today as well, and just discussing it and thinking about it. And it was quite difficult to actually pinpoint someone that I thought, he played really well. I would probably say, Goldson was strong, made very few mistakes, and was solid and led the defence. But obviously, the one that got the winner was Tavernier. That's his, him into double digits this season in the goal front. We probably speak about him on this more than any other player, and it has been the same probably for however long this is. The podcast has been going there. He's been a player that constantly is spoken about, and performances are probably ridiculed. There have been more than a lot of other players, but this season he's gone up a gear, and again today, yes, it was a penalty, but as people keep saying, you can talk about the amount of penalties he scores, but you've still got to put them in the net. It was something that we struggled with last season.
Yeah, I mean, his consistency from the penalty spot is quite incredible. He did have a wee wobble last year, and that's what led to Morelos taking that penalty against Celtic in the League Cup final, which didn't turn out too well. So he's earned the right to take them again, and since he's been back on them, he's sort of displaying that sort of form of old. I mean, Tavernier does, or he has, divided opinion, and I've been quite critical of him in the past, and I'll stand by that because he deserved the criticism. You know what I mean? I don't think there's anything wrong with criticism as long as it's constructive, and I don't like people that contact people direct in social media and all that kind of stuff. But if you're discussing things in an open forum, then yeah, I think criticism's fine, and I think he merited it, and I think Goldson did as well. And those two this season have been on another level. I think Tavernier in particular, but Goldson as well he's defending so well. He actually plays like a captain as well. He looks like a leader. I've noticed that he's the more vocal because there's no fans there at the moment. You can hear them. There was an incident today. I think there was a Kilmarnock player injured in the box, but it wasn't a head knock. So technically speaking, the referee shouldn't be stopping it, and he stopped it. And Goldson was raging, absolutely raging, screaming at Dallas referee. And I think that shows you maybe where Rangers are at the moment. There's just a real desire, and those two players are sort of probably the best example of it. Kent early on was displaying it, but he's kind of went off the boil. But those two have been so consistent. And John pointed out, I think it was towards the end of last season, that defensively Rangers were sound. We were okay. We conceded the same amount of goals as Celtic. It was scoring at the other end that the feeling was that's where we had to improve. But it actually feels like we're scoring as many goals as we scored last season, but we've improved defensively. We're conceding even less, which is something I don't think any of us considered. And so that's the defensive performances are the rock and the foundation of this run that we're on at the moment. Because if, like today, there's a good chance if Rangers score one, then that'll be enough, because we're not conceded a huge amount of goals. As I said, 3 in 12 games or 13 games or whatever it is. One of them shouldn't have counted. One was our own goal when we were 5-0 up. So realistically, we've only been, outplayed on the one occasion, and I don't care what anybody says. That is incredible defending, no matter what level you're playing at. You have to applaud that. So, yeah, as I said earlier on, I think the defence and midfield are operating well. I think if we get clicking up top, if we find a way of playing up top that starts to open up teams a wee bit more, we're going to give a good few doings before the season's out.
Well, just to stay with you on that point, you look at the defence as a whole this season, and there's been a wee bit of change there, and certainly with Hollander and Balogun, they've sort of been rotating, which makes the fact that we've kept so many clean sheets even more impressive when you think it hasn't been the same 4 guys constantly. There's been that sort of change.
Yeah, but I have to say, we've recruited well in that area. I mean, Hollander's a great player, and Balogun, I don't think is much of a step down, to be honest with you. It doesn't matter what one of them is playing. If you were to hold a gun to my head and ask me who I would rather would be in there, it would probably be Hollander. But there's not much difference between the two, and so we've recruited well there. We've got 2 excellent fullbacks who provide as much up front as they do defensively, probably more so. I think, again, me and my boy were talking about this today. I know you only come on as a sub, but the way Stephen Davis takes the ball off people, it's never a crunching tackle. it's always he just nips in and takes it. So, I mean, you talk about the back four, but there's, as Gerrard said today, it starts for the front three and how we defend. And I think how we're winning the ball back in the middle of the park is helping the defence too. But when it gets into your final third and you know, your back four are engaged, they've done it brilliantly. You know, they've, you know, balls into the box, they're cutting out crosses. McGregor, when he's had to be called into action, has delivered, and so did McLaughlin earlier on in the season. So, you know, defensively we're absolutely sound, and if we keep doing that, then we'll not be far away come the end of the season, whenever that is, obviously with the COVID stuff. But we keep defending the way we're defending, we will not be far away at the end of the season.
And John, obviously defensively, you know, no issues there. We've been really impressive. I'm just noticing a lot of guys in the comments section of the YouTube channel, they're mentioning this as well. We've rotated numerous times in the front three, and it's seen, you know, Roof, Eaton, Morelos, Barker, Jones all come into the team at one stage or another. Last Sunday, Defoe played, then Roof played midweek. Morelos started today after coming off the bench and scoring through the week there. Obviously, Roof came off the bench against Liège and scored. It's a strange old dilemma for the manager in terms of what his strongest team is, what his strongest strike force is, because in terms of, I mean, personally, looking at last Sunday's game, I felt like Defoe scored a magnificent goal, but overall for me, it doesn't really fit into the way we play as much now in terms of what he brings to the team. I just don't think it fits in with the way we play at the moment. Morelos is obviously blown hot and cold, and Roof is coming back off an injury. You've got Eaton today playing the right. I thought he did well. But it's a bit of a conundrum for Gerrard at the moment, finding that strongest front three.
I think it's a conundrum he probably welcomes. Last season, we were so reliant on Morelos. I think that ultimately was the side's downfall, that when Morelos went off the ball, we couldn't score goals. You don't feel that's the case this season. There's goals coming from across the team. I mean, an interesting thing you guys were just talking about a second ago about, you know, Goldson and Tav. You know, Goldson and Tav are you know, properly threatening going forward now. You know, Goldson has become a real, you know, he's become a real problem in the box for other teams at set pieces, where I'm not sure he was as much, you know, earlier on in his Rangers career. Whereas now, I mean, obviously the penalty today, you know, it was his header. I'm not sure if it was going in or not, but it wouldn't have been far away. You know, and he's got obviously the 2 goals against Celtic. You know, so from that perspective, I don't think Gerrard will be that concerned, because I don't think this current Rangers side relies on the forwards exclusively for goals. They all seem to know what to do. I think one of the reasons we're not conceding goals is because the midfield and the front three start the defending and actually give the defenders a break. You know, the defenders don't need to get involved very often because the play is broken down before it gets to our defence. You know, and I think that is down to how they're being drilled and how they're playing and the kind of form that we've got just now. So in terms of what our best front three is, I think it depends on the type of team we're playing. I suspect we'll have a different front three against Benfica. I'm no expert on how Benfica play, but I would expect that we'll play Kent. I wouldn't be surprised to see Barker come back in because I think we'll look for speed. I think he'll look for players who can break at speed, because I think he'll expect Benfica to have more of the ball and perhaps their opportunities will be on the break. Whereas against Kilmarnock, you know, you're expecting to have most of the ball. So I thought it was interesting. Itten was in there because Kilmarnock quite a tall team, and I thought Itten came in because he's quite tall. He offers us different options. He's not a player you associate with being particularly strong in the air, but it does bring us something different. Kent's been almost ever present. He seems to be, him and Goldson and Tav and Barisic seem to be the kind of 4 that can't currently get dropped. I actually thought Kent had one of his poorer games. He had a couple of good chances. I thought he should have scored at least one today. But I think if everybody's fit, I know they are all fit just now. I don't think Roof is properly match fit yet. I'm not sure Defoe is properly match fit either. But I think if everybody was fit, I think Roof is probably going to be our kind of focal point striker. I think Kent starts, and then I think it's kind of any one of another 3 or 4 from Morelos, from Jones, from Itten, and from Barker, who joined them. And I'm quite comfortable with that, because inevitably we will get injuries, we'll get bookings, we'll get, guys playing on Thursdays and then playing again on Sundays. You are going to get players tired. And so I think the fact that we can take that front three and change it for almost every game is credit to the team, credit to the coaches, credit to the players. But I also think it confuses the opposition. The truth is, they don't know what front three they're going to face. Benfica watching that game today, they don't know what team they're going to face. They have a fair idea what the defence is going to look like. They could probably guess 2 of the 3 midfielders, but they don't know who the front three is going to be. Hamilton don't know who the front three are going to be. And I think that's probably a good thing, because the front three are playing well, whoever they are. And that's not something that we've had for a long time. The ability to bring in different forwards who offer different types. I actually thought Morelos had a better game than maybe you're giving him credit for today. He didn't score, but I thought he worked hard. That's a physical team, Kilmarnock, and a big physical team. I thought he didn't give them a minute's peace. He didn't let them build. He shut them down when they needed shut down. He had a couple of nice touches, he had a lovely dummy for Kent, where Kent should have done better. He occupies a defence, and I think that's something that we perhaps overlook at times. And I think the fact that he does that creates space for other players. So, overall, I don't know who our best front three are. I think it depends who we play. But I suspect we'll see more and more changing. I suspect we'll all be kind of left scratching our heads a little bit as to who's going to start each game when they're all fit. And I think that's quite a good thing. I think that keeps everybody guessing and it keeps all the players hungry. They all know they'll get a chance and they have to take it when it comes, because it could be a while before they get another chance. So, yeah, I'm all for this. I think this is good.
Colin, just on John's point, he makes a good point there about the Benfica game, the speed aspect, and when Barker started at Parkhead, obviously that was probably the thinking there as well. Do you think there's still a room in the squad for a Kent on the right hand side, if that makes sense? Someone that's going to be a consistent starter for us on the right hand side, because at the moment, you're looking at your Barkers and your Jones type players who, perhaps lack quality in certain areas.
I don't know. I mean, I agree with John. I think we'll be playing on the counter on Thursday night, and so that does suggest that it'll probably be Barker that comes in. So I agree with that. Whether we need someone consistently in that position, I kind of get the impression with Steven Gerrard that in each area of the 3 sort of areas of the team, there's 1 or 2 in each area that just don't get dropped. You know what I mean? And John sort of alluded that to earlier on. So Tav and Goldson and Barisic are always in that team. McGregor's always in that team. In the midfield, he's been a bit stop-start this season because of his injury, but normally Ryan Jack is a starter in that team every week. And up front, probably Ryan Kent. I mean, last season you would probably have Morelos in there as well, but it's a wee bit different this year. So I think that's the kind of spine of the team, and I think that's something we've spoke about in the past, that's what we needed. We needed a good spine, and to me, that's what every successful Rangers team has had. It's had players that are the spine of that side, and the other ones are interchangeable. So I don't think it's necessarily something that we need to worry about. I think Steven Gerrard again commented on it today, saying horses for courses. Wherever they go, they'll analyse the opposition and they'll decide, who's the best 11 to get the job done and to get the points in the bag. However, within that 11, there'll always be ones that are there week in, week out, but in other positions they will change it to suit whoever they're playing. So I don't think it's an urgency. No, I don't. It's not something that concerns me, that right hand side. I think I think Itten done very well there today. I thought he was the best of our front three today. I thought he was the one that held the ball and brought others into play a lot better. There was a couple of times, I know John was sort of saying there that he's not the best in the air, but there was a couple of times he sort of out jumped the guys and chested it down to Tav or whoever was supporting him rather than heading it down because he's so tall. So, and I thought, as I said, I thought he held on to the ball well. He got a couple of good balls in, especially in the second half. He worked the full back well. So that's another option. Barker's obviously been there. Hadji, sometimes Aribo's played on that right hand side, so he can work it on his left foot. I think it's good that we have positions all over the park that are interchangeable, that we bring in different personnel depending on the opposition. But within that, you've got your ever presents who are just the spine of that team. So no, I think it's working at the moment, and if it's working, then why do you change it?
We will go on to discuss the Benfica game shortly and preview that. But firstly, we'll go back to Thursday night, which was another good night for Steven Gerrard and his players. 1-0 victory over Lech Poznan at Ibrox gives us a 6 points from 2 games in the group, which has been our best return over the past 3 years after 2 matches. John, what were your thoughts on the game? Obviously, going into it, we've gone in as heavy favourites, which maybe we weren't so used to, especially in Europe. To go into a game in the group stages and be so heavily backed. They came with a game plan. Were hard to break down. What were your overall sort of thoughts on Thursday night's game?
Delighted with the result, and I think we deserved the victory. I think we were the better team. My feelings, I agree with you. I think we did go in as favourites, and I think I spoke to some Rangers supporters who were openly confident about the game, and I'm never confident in the games. I'm an eternal pessimist, but I understand why people were confident. Poznan had a pretty heavy defeat. The league form is patchy. They're not a big name. Polish football, is certainly on a par with Scottish football. You don't look at Polish club football as being of a massively higher standard than the kind of football we're playing against most weeks. So I can understand why at home, in our current form, people thought, yeah, we're the favourites. I think Poznan were a much better team than perhaps we've been expecting. I thought they played good football. I was impressed with how they played out from the back. 2 or 3 times, we were swarming around them, as we've seen us do to teams all season, and they were able to pass their way through. I was quite impressed with that. I don't think they're weaker up front than Rangers, and I think if they had been stronger up front, they may have caused us some problems because on a few occasions they managed to work the ball into good positions, and very little came of it. Whereas I think as the game went on, we got stronger. The goal when it came was a good goal, lovely cross. Morelos did what Morelos does. He found a yard, he made the run, and he got there and he buried it, and I was really pleased for him. And overall, I was relieved that we scored, because I did worry that the longer went on without us scoring, there was always a chance of us getting hit with a counter. And I think to go through, you really do need to take something from your home games. It leaves us in a really strong position. But yeah, that was my kind of main thing, was that Poznan were not nearly as poor as some people thought. I think because they'd shipped maybe 4 against Benfica at home, maybe people thought, they can't be up to much. Now, we'll find out later this week just how good Benfica are. Again, it's hard to tell. They got a good result against Liège. Again, it will be interesting to see what it was like against us. I think everybody accepts Benfica are probably the favourites to win the group. But I think Poznan are a better team than we gave them maybe credit for initially. I think it'll be a different game in Poland. I think they'll have to play slightly differently over there. But overall, I think, as you said in your question, the fact that we went into the game favourites tells you something about A, how well this team is performing just now, and B, the expectation of the support. Other than kind of early qualifying rounds. Rangers don't go into Scottish football teams, don't go into European group matches as favourites. That's not something that we've been doing for a while. And the fact that we did, and the fact that we not only went in as favourites, but we went in and played well and won the game. Again, all credit to the team, all credit to the management, all credit to everybody who's helped put that team together. That's the best you can say for them, because it was another good result, another good performance, and we're in a really strong position, and everybody's really excited about this match on Thursday now.
Yeah, Colin, I mean, the thing that struck me about the match on Thursday was the fact that for large spells, Poznan sat in and tried to frustrate us. And I was sort of thinking about the games that we've played in the group stages over the past few years, and I can't really remember a team coming to, frustrate like that. And it just shows how respected we are, as a team now.
Well, undoubtedly. I mean, since Gerrard came, I think we can all agree that that's the one sort of area that he's mastered. He's navigated us through 3 qualifying stages. I think last season Rangers became the first team to get out of the group stages who'd started on day one. So it's something that he has pretty much from the moment he walked through the door. He's displayed a sort of an ability to manage these fixtures fairly well. And John saying there that some fans were extremely confident going into it. I was extremely confident on Thursday night. Now we maybe did underestimate Poznan a wee bit, but I also think you get games like this, games where you go in there thinking, it'll be 2-3-0, and it's actually a wee bit tighter. That's just the nature of the beast. I mean, there was a couple of nervy moments, but overall, again, I just felt without being outstanding, we just looked in control. We looked like we were the better team. And I think Gerrard has done a remarkable job in Europe. When you consider where we were in that arena, under Pedro, and the progress debacle and all that kind of thing. And that is probably the lowest point in our history in Europe. It was just the night we went out against them, I was running my boy to training, so I was catching up in the game here and there, and I was actually listening to it in the car when was it 2-1 that night or 2-0, I can't remember, but when the goal that went in that put us out, it was just gut churning, and there's been various points through the journey back up, for 2012 where I questioned are we ever going to come back? And that was one of those nights. I really thought, this is it. We are never going to be the same club again. We're never going to have the same stature again. And Gerrard has changed that. And he's got us into the group stages 3 years in a row. He got us into the latter stages last season. And it's now at the stage where you go into these games. I'm going into Thursday night's game thinking we can get a result over there. You know what I mean? It's not just a case of, well, let's see, and hopefully we'll get something. I genuinely believe Rangers have went to Portugal last year against Porto, and we arguably should have won that game over there. And so I feel if we play the way we can play, and he selects the right personnel, and the game plan, whatever it is they're planning, if the players can execute it the way that Steven Gerrard wants them to execute it, I think we're in with a chance. No just to getting a draw to winning on Thursday. That's maybe sounding arrogant and maybe overly confident, but that's a direct result of the evidence that Steven Gerrard has provided over the last 2 and a bit years. He knows how to manage in these fixtures, and in the European arena at the Europa League level, I actually watched the Liverpool Michelin game the other night, and I felt Rangers could have competed in that no problem. So yeah, we're a good team in Europe, and we just need to sort of replicate that form domestically and start getting some silver there. But I'm going into Thursday confident. I think Rangers can get a result over there.
John, just before we move on to the Benfica game and have a look at that, a lot's been said about this team and the fact that, they are enjoying the idea of not playing with supporters there, and, it's making them play better because there's less anxiety over the crowd getting on their back. But when you watch these games, like even the Galatasaray game, Thursday night's game, do you think that the players are missing that big game atmosphere at Ibrox on Thursday nights? Because that was, some of the best atmospheres that I can remember over the past couple of years have been during the Thursday night games, and it's certainly, for the most part, has spurred the players on, to get the results. And on Thursday night, it looked at times like they could have done with the backing of the supporters. So it's pretty, in my opinion, there's a case to be made for, how much they're missing the fans, and just giving them that extra boost. Would you agree with that?
I watched the Hearts Hibs game yesterday. I had the rare treat of watching an Edinburgh derby. Ah, dear. If ever a game of football needed supporters, it was that one. It felt soulless. Here are two teams, cup semi-final, two big rivals, a lot at stake, and it just felt soulless. That was a game that needed supporters. And basically all football needs supporters. And I'm of the opinion it doesn't actually matter what the players think or want. It's what the supporters want. The game is for the supporters, not the other way around. And unfortunately, we can't be there just now. And I know there's folk will make arguments about we actually could be, and people will say, well, certain numbers could be there, etc., etc., etc. But what I mean is we can't be there because that's the law. That's just how it is for now. So we can't be there. In my honest opinion, I don't think the team are missing us just now. I think that I actually think the lack of support has helped Rangers at times. I'm not as convinced as you that the support would have been as supporting, 10 minutes into the second half when we still hadn't broken them down. I think that's when you start to hear some of the groans from the crowd. That's when, it's when your guys, your Hajis, these guys, when he's trying something that's not coming off and he tries it again, it's not coming off. I think that's when these guys feel the crowd on their back. I agree with you. Against Braga, again, ironically, Hadji turned the game. Against Braga, when we got that one goal, the crowd were up. And I do agree with you. I think they rode Rangers on in that game. And so when the crowd are behind them, they are, let's speak in cliches, they are a 12th man. They definitely do add something to it. They definitely do help. But if I'm being entirely honest with you, I don't think Rangers have missed the crowd this season. I think they might later. I think there'll be games later. I think Benfica at home is the kind of game where the crowd could have played a big part. I suspect that, the Celtic game at home will be one where we'll miss the crowd. There will be games, don't get me wrong. But I'm not convinced we've missed them, that they've missed us this season. We've missed them. But I'm not convinced they've missed us as much as maybe you think. It's just my view. I think I don't think it's a coincidence that our two fullbacks, the two players closest to our support throughout the match, are having their best seasons ever. When there's nobody standing at the sidelines shouting something at them, "Get ready it, Tav, you're rotten!" You hear these guys. They're there, and I support them for that. In the end, they've paid the money to come along. Part of being a football supporter, part of the joy of being a football supporter, is the ability it gives you to shout abuse at talented millionaires. There's no other place in your life you get to do that than a football match. So I'm not suggesting that should be taken away from us, but definitely there are times I don't think it helps. So I actually think it is probably helping this team just now. But that's just my opinion, David, and I absolutely accept I could be dead wrong on that.
Can I just come in, David, before we move on? I think a lot of Rangers supporters, I would agree with John, and I think a lot of Rangers supporters need to actually look at themselves and how they support the club, because there are players that are now playing better because we're not there. And I agree with John in terms of, we're entitled to an opinion, we're entitled to criticise performances, but I think during the game, you need to get behind them and you need to support them and be that 12th man that people talk about. I think a lot of Rangers supporters have this mythical view of what they do for the team. I think John's right. I think in the bigger European games, when there's no expectation, when we're the underdog, then we get behind them. But when there's an expectation on the players, I mean, a guy that sits next to me in the Tavernier, the earliest I've heard him start to turn on the players was like a minute into the game. You know, it was just like I think it was Scott Arfield misplaced a pass or something, and it was like, oh, for fuck's sake. You know, all that, it just started straight away. And I'm looking at my watch and it's like 3:01. And that is just, I don't get it. You know, we're supposed to be there to help the players over the line. I think if they don't get the result, then we all go into social media, we all go into the forums, we all go to the pub and we say, oh, by the way, yeah, he was shite, blah, blah, blah. But during the game, we need to get behind them, because I think what the players are displaying now, when they don't have that sort of, you know, negative influence that can come from Ibrox. Ibrox can be a difficult place when, you know, after a half hour and things aren't going the way that we want them to go. You know, I think we should be looking at, well, are we actually supporting the players in the right manner? We're entitled to criticise, we're entitled to an opinion, but during the game, is doing it through that game actually, you know, does it achieve anything? I don't think it does. I think it makes players play within themselves. So I think a lot of people within the Rangers sport, we need to start looking at ourselves and saying, are we supporting the players in the right way?
For legal reasons, if you are that fan in the Govan Reel that sits near Colin and would like to come on and have your right to reply to his comments there, then please get in touch with us on Twitter and we can make that happen.
Yeah, we will, but see, after 30 seconds of his reply, I'll start criticising him.
How many listeners did we just lose there, by the way, in that? Is that
I'm just pointing out that we need to start getting behind them. I don't think it's any coincidence that we've looked a better team this season with no fans.
Yeah, well, we're three of us are going to have a chat when we go off air as well, but you two disagreeing with me like that and ganging up on me as well. So I'm just going to mute you both and continue the podcast on my own for the rest of the night. But moving on, Colin.
Yes.
I was only kidding there. I have to involve you because no one wants to listen to me for 15 minutes. But no, this Thursday is quite a exciting trip. It's sort of, you know, you and I have spoken and certainly spoke just before the draw about, you know, getting a big club and getting a big trip. Well, not a big trip, but getting an exciting group. We got a few, you know, we got a couple of decent sized clubs. But Benfica, I mean, when you look at past 3 years, probably the biggest club we'll have faced during Gerrard's time.
Yeah, and it's great to, as I said, you know, after the, you know, Pedro was standing on the hedge, and you know, I did question whether we would get these kind of nights back, and it's great. You don't really, when you go to these games or when you're watching them, you maybe don't get the appreciation of just how much history you're creating. You know, it's only, I really get a sense for it when I walk into, you know, anytime I do a tour at Ibrox and you go into the trophy room and you see all the pennants hanging and all the clubs and, you know, just everybody we've played in European competition down the years. You know, you think, well, this is us kind of making history. You know what I mean? 30, 40 years from now, there'll be supporters doing the tour at Ibrox and there'll be a pennant up there. You know, Rangers against Porto or Rangers against Feyenoord, you know, for Steven Gerrard's time. And yeah, it's great that we're getting these clubs to Ibrox. Obviously, it's a shame this year because we'll not get to see them. We won't be able to go to the game, but it's still great that we're playing these sort of level clubs again. And we've never played Benfica competitively before. You know, we've only played them once, and it was a challenge match in the sort of, I think it was like mid-60s or something like that. So it's good. Again, regretting that we're not going to get the opportunity to go to Ibrox and actually see them, you know, in the flesh. But to get these games back is just, it's brilliant, you know, and it's also quite good to be able to wind folk up in terms of, you know, the positive impact that Rangers run in Europe over the last sort of 2 or 3 years has had on the coefficient, you know, because we've had 8 years of, you know, sell out Saturday and, you know, we don't read Rangers and Sevco this and Sevco that and all that shite, right? And now, because of Rangers, you know what I mean, you know, we've jumped for like 26 in the coefficient to 11th or 10th or whatever it is, and, you know, we're now looking at 2 Champions League places next year. So not only is it good from a sort of prestige and historical sort of perspective to get these games back, also gives us a wee opportunity to throw two fingers at everyone that doesn't like us.
Yeah, John, when you look at the game itself, Benfica are top of the league in Portugal at the moment, 100% record. They also boast, I've had a wee look at their team from last Thursday's game. Jan Vertonghen, obviously ex-Tottenham, and Nicolas Otamendi, ex-Manchester City until the summer there. They've obviously got a few quid, but should we really be holding any fear going to Portugal on Thursday night?
I think you're marginally younger than Colin and I, David. So I don't know what your view on Benfica is.
Sorry, just before you go on your answer.
Sorry, David. No, I think it's my turn to speak now, David. I thought
it's 20 years.
Time for you to pretend that you're a lot younger than us. So I don't know what your view on Benfica is, but somebody like me, who is a little bit older than you, Benfica are one of the big names in European football. Benfica are at one time Benfica were on a par with Real Madrid in terms of the mystique that they had and frankly the success that they had. Now, Portuguese football is Portuguese club football certainly is not on that level anymore. So what do we expect going to there? I think we should expect our hardest game of the season, Benfica away. Well, I would expect it to be our hardest game of the season. I think the team that is top of the Portuguese league will be a decent football team. They will have some talented players in that team. The Portuguese league is raided by the top Spanish and the top Italian teams every season. The Portuguese league is a league where a lot of Brazilian players come in to Portugal because of the kind of cultural ties that Brazil and Portugal have. So a lot of Brazilian players come in, and the Portuguese teams are quite good at bringing through their own young players. So I expect there will be guys in that team that we're not familiar with. I know you mentioned Otamendi and Vertonghen, who are both at the other end of their careers, but I suspect there'll be guys in that team that we're not familiar with who will go on to become household names in years to come. And it will be nice and exciting to see them. Like Colin, I'm going there with some expectation. I'm looking forward to the match. It will be interesting to see. I mean, I think everybody's agreed that Bayer Leverkusen were a class above us. Where we had reached. We had overperformed at times, and we'd got to Bayer Leverkusen, and they're just better. A good Bundesliga team is better. But I think we're going to look at this game thinking, we should be able to give this team a game. We won, and we won in Braga. We should have won in Porto. So I don't think Portugal itself holds any great fears. It's it's a good distance. It's a couple of hours flight. So, there's no particular concerns there. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to seeing us play against Benfica, because for me, Benfica are one of these great teams. They're one of the great names of European football. I've never seen them play Rangers, like most Rangers supporters. I've never seen them play Rangers. It's been a long time since we played them. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think we will have to be at our best to get a result. But I think that's possible, and I am quite looking forward to it. Bring it on. That's what it's all about. Is getting to play these games. That's why we're here. That's why we want the team to do well. So we get to play these games. So we get to match ourselves against these teams. And Benfica, that'd be good. As Colin says, it'd be nice to see that pennant up in the blue room at some point in the future.
Yeah, and we shall see on Thursday night how it goes when we travel to Portugal.
And one wee last thing. I learned a thing. Now I dare say this is something that if you're doing a Benfica preview through the week, that it will probably get picked up on in that. But I learned a thing about Benfica today that I didn't know, is that Benfica are actually called Sporting Lisbon, and Sporting Lisbon aren't called Sporting Lisbon. They are Sporting Club of Portugal. But for some reason, we call Sporting Lisbon Benfica, and we call Sporting Club of Portugal Sporting Lisbon. How's that for confusion?
Well, I'm confused.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The actual Benfica's actual name is Sporting Lisbon, and Benfica is it was to do with an amalgamation many years ago. Benfica were actually a cycling club, and if you look at the Benfica badge, there is a cycling wheel behind the eagle, because they were the Benfica Sporting Club and the Sporting Lisbon Sporting Club came together and merged. Anyway, you guys will cover this, and you guys will cover this through the week. I'm stealing your part.
We're still on air, John.
Nobody's listening now, David. It's okay.
I'll give John his due. He's got me googling the Benfica
badge
at the moment.
Sorry to go off on a tangent to the listeners here, but I've just gone on. I can't see it. What did you say it was? A cycling wheel?
It's the wheel of a bike. It's definitely there. Have a look behind the eagle.
I can't see it.
You see the spokes of the wheel coming up.
Listen.
Oh, there is. There's a big wheel.
Yeah,
it is. He's right. Fair play, John.
Right. Anyway, we're going to move on to some sad news actually yesterday, which a couple of bits of sad news through the day. Obviously, Sean Connery, who was probably the most iconic Scottish actor of all time, but also a man who followed Rangers closely in the 90s, and has also, there's been a lot of good clips kicking about of meetings with him in Gaza, and a lot of great stories, fantastic stories actually, about his links with Rangers when David Murray was in charge. And then yesterday evening during the Edinburgh Derby, obviously the sad news that Marius Zaliukas had passed away at the age of 36. Obviously both men links to Rangers in different ways. Marius played in the 2014-15 season, but was more famous for leading Hearts to the Scottish Cup. And I think on behalf of Gersnet, I think our thoughts are with it, all of Marius's friends and family at what is, I'm sure, to be such a difficult time. Far too young to be taken away, and just heartbreaking stuff for his family. Sean Connery, Colin, I'll come to you. I saw you tweeting quite a bit. I'm sure you were a big Connery fan when you were a young boy in 1942. Sorry, Colin, 1972. But yeah, I mean, this is a story that I love. And when I was a boy, watching the James Bond films, and my dad obviously making me watch James Bond films, and Connery would always tell me he was a Rangers supporter, and I knew that from an early age. But when I got a bit older and heard the stories, his links with Rangers are absolute. I mean, it's just the most magnificent story, and it's a funny one because you hear about all these people that are so-called Rangers fans. But he obviously had one of the best backstories to why he was a Rangers fan.
Well, you'll have to enlighten me, because my knowledge of Connery was that he was kind of more of a Celtic man in the 60s.
So, for anyone, I don't know if you know, John, but the story that I know, and this might be completely fabricated, but I'm pretty sure, and you've just thrown me off. You've knocked my confidence here, Colin.
No, on you go.
But when Fergus McCann was in charge at Celtic...
Yeah, that's the story I've heard. You're right.
And he phoned up for tickets to the Old Firm game, and David Murray got wind of it and offered him tickets with him in the director's box.
And that's it. He done a Maurice Johnson. He went for Celtic to Rangers. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I mean, I loved seeing Sean Connery at Ibrox in the 90s. You know what I mean? Again, it was that kind of... The glamour that sort of came with seeing somebody like that there. You know what I mean? And in terms of, he's obviously best known for being Bond, but I think I put this out on Twitter yesterday that I think his best role was as Henry Jones Jr. in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I loved him in that. I loved the Indiana Jones movie as a boy, and that's the role I sort of loved him in. But just to see Connery at Ibrox, the first time I seem to remember him following Rangers, it was at Celtic Park, and it was the day that Mark Hateley scored 2. I think it was the first Old Firm game of the season. I think that was a game that Connery tried to get tickets for Fergus McCann, and Fergus McCann had told him to cough up, and David Murray got wind of it, as you said, and so he jumped ship. And since then, it was just great to see him. You know what I mean? Every time he was at Ibrox, to see someone like that, following us, obviously, I think there was a strong David Murray connection because, once David Murray was sort of, sold the club, we never saw so much of him. But I did sort of still read stuff here and there saying that he was, still watching us from his luxury pad and whatever island it was he was staying in. So, yeah, and it was sad news. I mean, he is a sort of Scottish icon, isn't he? The first James Bond, most iconic, I suppose, James Bond. So it was sad news yesterday.
It's remarkable he lived as long as he did because he had the biggest milk round in the world. There was nobody in Edinburgh's granny he did not deliver milk to. When I was a boy, everybody you met from Edinburgh told you that Sean Connery used to deliver our milk. You can't deliver milk.
Well, he also done a good movie about the Fairfield shipyards in Govan called The Bowler Hat and the Bonnet.
Yeah.
And that's really good, So, I mean, I know he was a mega star and a multi-millionaire and all the rest of it, but I do think he sort of kept a wee bit of a hold of his working class background, and I've always got a wee bit of time for people to do that.
I was reading his obituary today, and I didn't know this. Apparently, he was offered a contract with Man United.
I knew he was a footballer. I knew he was a decent player.
Bonnie Rig Rose or something, and was scouted by Man United and offered a contract. But I don't know. That's what was said in one of his obituaries today.
Yeah. Just lastly, Colin, I know you'd mentioned this through the week, but if anyone hasn't listened to the High Performance podcast with Stephen Gerrard, it's quite enlightening into his sort of ideas as a leader, and both his playing career and now as Rangers manager, which features quite heavily. I think it's available quite widely, the podcast. But Colin, it was quite an insight into Gerrard's psyche and what he's all about as a manager and a player.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, we were talking about it on the WhatsApp through the week. I mean, I can listen to Gerrard anyway. I've just got so much respect and admiration for him. I mean, I think we're really lucky to have him as a manager. I know there's some supporters out there who would disagree with that, but I think we have a top class manager at the moment. I mean, the two things that I got out of it was one, the slip that seems to. That's with him every day. I think that haunts him to this day, and it'll probably stay with him until the end of his days. But I also think that's the way he was talking. It sounded like that's partly what motivates him and keeps him going. I still think he's desperate to get a title of some sort. And I also quite liked he was talking about how he prepares for games, and the main sort of thing he takes from management is he makes a plan. And, he executes the plan. If it goes wrong, he looks for where it went wrong and why it went wrong, fixes that, resets, and then goes again. And you would have to say that's been borne out. At Rangers, in his first season, he got a draw at Pittodrie in his first game, a draw at Motherwell, like a couple of games after that, and then we were beat off Celtic. So, at this stage in the season, we were already like 6 or 7 points behind Celtic. Then last season, he improved, beat Celtic for the first time and all that kind of thing at Celtic Park. And then this season, we've just improved again. You know what I mean? So you would have to say that domestically, I mean, I know he's been pretty consistent in Europe, but there has been blips domestically. But year on year, he improves. So you would have to say that what he was talking about ties in with what you see. And I think that will bear fruit one day. I think he's not far away from cracking it. So, and hopefully it's this season. But I think he's I think we've got a remarkable human being as a manager, and as a manager, I think he's top class.
Yeah, I think we can all agree with that. Well, that's about us for tonight. Thank you to Colin and John for joining me, and thank you for listening. It's been a good week for Rangers. Hopefully, another good week on the way. If you enjoy what we're doing here, please subscribe to the podcast or give us a like on social media. Previous episodes and tonight's show are available to listen to on all the usual platforms from Monday: Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Castbox, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Thanks again for joining us, and good night.